Have you ever stopped to think about why a single, powerful image can be so much more persuasive than a long, well-reasoned argument? Well, today we're digging deep into that exact concept. We're breaking down Law 37 from Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power, and we're going to uncover why what people see can so easily overpower anything they hear.
So, what's the real judgment behind this law? It's actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. You see, dramatic images and big, symbolic gestures, they create an aura of power that's almost impossible to ignore. This isn't just about appearances for their own sake. It's a strategic weapon. When you control what people see, you control their emotions. And when you do that, you can dazzle them, distract them from what you're really up to, and completely bypass their rational mind. Okay, so that's the theory. But how does this play out in the real world? Our first story is a perfect example of how a carefully staged spectacle can just completely steamroll logic. For this one, we're heading back to 18th century Berlin. Picture this. A buzz starts to spread through the city about this new physician, a Dr. Weisslieder. People are calling him the Moon Doctor. And the stories they're telling are wild. They're saying he's performing miracles. Pretty soon, lines are forming, filled with everyone from the city's poorest to its wealthiest nobles, all desperate for a cure.
Now, his method, to us, today, it sounds totally absurd, right? His big secret was that he would expose his patients to moonlight in this giant repurposed beer hall. But here's the thing, don't write it off just yet. The key wasn't the science, because there was none. The key was the presentation. The weird, massive setting and the simple, almost magical premise. That was the beginning of a powerful piece of theater.
And this is where it gets really clever. The whole experience was designed to create belief before the patient even saw the doctor. Just imagine it. You wait for hours, packed in a crowd buzzing with nervous energy and hope. Then you start hearing these shouts from upstairs, people yelling about miracles. By the time it's your turn to walk into that strange, silvery, moonlit hall, you're already halfway to believing. The final ritual with the doctor, that was just the grand finale.
And that right there, that's the core of it all. Dr. Weisslieder wasn't a man of science. He was a master of psychology. He understood a fundamental human truth. People don't always want a dry, rational explanation. They want something that hits them in the gut, something that feels powerful. The mythic symbol of the moon, combined with that whole emotional circus he created, was way more persuasive than any medical proof he could have offered.
Okay, so let's take that idea and build on it. Our next example shows a much more sophisticated long-term use of spectacle. This isn't about a one-off cure. This is about using symbols to build and maintain power at the very highest levels of society. So let's talk about Diane de Poitiers. The reality of her situation was, well, it was risky. She was the mistress of the King of France, and she was 20 years older than him. In that world, that's a very vulnerable position to be in. But the image she built for herself, oh, that was something else entirely. She crafted the persona of a timeless divine goddess. So the question is, how on earth did she manage that? She basically launched one of the most brilliant personal branding campaigns in history. First, she took her initial, D, and intertwined it with the king's H, and that symbol was put on everything. She adopted black and white as her exclusive colors, creating this stark, instantly recognizable look. But the masterstroke was linking herself directly to Diana, the Roman goddess of the hunt. It was perfect, a chaste, powerful goddess for her athletic, hunt-loving king.
And you know what? It worked. It worked unbelievably well. The king and the entire royal court, they stopped seeing an aging mistress. Instead, they saw a living myth. Her symbolic power grew so strong that it completely overshadowed her physical reality, and that allowed her to hold on to incredible power and influence right up until the day the king died. So we've seen two very different but very powerful examples. A quick, dazzling cure and a lifelong image campaign. But what's the actual mechanism here? Why is the visual just so much more dominant than the verbal when it comes to power and persuasion?
Well, here's the fundamental difference you have to understand. Words, they invite debate. They open the door for doubt. The moment you have to start explaining yourself with words, you're already on the defensive. But an image doesn't argue. It just hits you right in the emotions, instantly. It creates these powerful associations that are incredibly hard to argue with or even shake off.
A perfect example of this is Louis XIV, the Sun King. He didn't sit down and write a long essay about why he was a great and central leader. No. He just chose the most powerful, magnificent visual symbol he could think of, the sun, and made it his own. That one symbol did all the heavy lifting, communicating power, light, and centrality without him ever having to make a single argument.
So if you want to use this kind of power, you need to understand the basic principles. First, just accept that sight is our most dominant, most trusted sense. We believe what we see. Second, know that colors have deep symbolic power, just like Diane de Poitiers did with her black and white. Third, think of symbols as mental shortcuts. They can pack dozens of complex ideas into one single emotionally charged image. And finally, never underestimate the power of being first. The first image a person sees often defines the entire interaction.
This all brings us to the final and pretty stark conclusion about Law 37. You see, unlike some of the other laws of power, this one doesn't really have a loophole. There's no alternative path.
The judgment here is absolute. There is no power to be found in ignoring the world of images, symbols, and spectacle. In fact, to do so is to willingly give up one of the most fundamental tools of influence. You cannot reverse this law. In a world that runs on visuals, you just can't afford to be visually boring.
So what does all this mean for us, right now? Well, this isn't just about history. Spectacle is everywhere. It's in the meticulously staged launch of a new phone. It's in the visual branding of a political campaign. It's even in the carefully curated image a person builds on their social media. So the real question isn't if you're going to deal with spectacle, it's how. Once you understand this language of images, you can start to see what's really happening behind the curtain. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What spectacles are shaping your world right now? And what spectacles are you creating for others, maybe without even realizing it?